Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to our weekly spoiler-filled discussion on WandaVision. Today was episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall, and once again, I feel like a broken record. There's a lot to discuss, especially regarding the ending. Did your theories come true? Your speculation? Did you think it was going to go this way? We still have 2 more episodes to go on this thing, but we are getting ever closer to that finale, and this was still a big episode, and we're going to go into it, our own opinions, theories that we still have, characters that we may see. And last week, of course, we open it up to you guys as well. We want you to comment along as we go into this thing. Last week, we had an awesome discussion. We had so many people on last week. Hopefully, we can get the same again with this one, because there's still a lot to talk about with this episode. But before we dive into it, just quick blast of the socials, and then we're going straight into this thing.
Absolutely, guys. As Chris said, we want you to comment along. We love your theories, your thoughts, what came right, what came wrong, what could still happen. There's the N word, I think we're going to have to call him at this range. He's going to get brought up again and again and again. So comment anything and everything WandaVision. We love going through the comments. We love talking. This is very different. And you want to find some of our other content, because there's a lot of things cropping up over the next week. So if you like Marvel, there's even more Marvel on the way, if you don't know by now. But you want to find out when our videos are going to be, what the videos are going to be. You want to find us on our social media where we announce them, which is Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterbox.com/Cinema Savvy, and our link to TeePublic is in the description below. And if you do like this video, if you're the first time you checked out our WandaVision series, check out some of the other ones, because our theories go wrong each week. The odd one comes right, but there's far more wrong than there is right. And if you do enjoy that, hit that like button. Do, as I said, comment. We'll comment to replies after the stream, so fear not about not joining us on the live stream. And of course, hit that subscribe button. We're getting closer to our goals, and the Marvel stuff's just getting started. We're in a deep journey now. Forget WandaVision, Loki, Falcon Winter Soldier. We've got the entire MCU retrospective starting on March the 1st. So if you like Marvel, now is the time to hit that subscribe button. But before we get to that in March, it's still February. And as we said, we're on episode 7 of WandaVision. And straight away, the big one is going to be the time jump. Sorry, it's not the big one. It's the opening statement. We're in the 2010s, Chris, as we expected. Mm-hmm. And how did you feel about that? Because we basically get a modern family as the theme. And this time I could tell it you from the opening minute. However, I'm going to talk about the Office theme in a bit. But if you want to go first.
Yeah, so I've never seen Modern Family, so I never got the direct link to it, but obviously visually they've always done a great job with the intros to the sitcom shows, and you can easily pinpoint which decade it is, even if you've never seen the actual show that it's, pastiche in the most. So it makes sense. We're getting close to that finale that we'd finally get to the 2010s, and actually it made it more of like a personal episode. There's I'm not saying all modern sitcoms do this, but there's more moments where, as the title suggests, they break the fourth wall. Someone will talk directly to camera. It's more of those interview-based ones. If you've got like The Office or something like that, where someone will have an aside, those real-life situations. And you fundamentally got Wanda talking to camera, which I think is really actually good at this point, considering everything she's gone with. And my favorite takeaways from this episode, I will go out of the way and say that I didn't love this episode. This felt more of it's kind of a step back from previous weeks. It felt like, especially when we had Vision breaking out of the Hex, that was like action packed, and it felt like we're building something. This felt more akin to maybe sort of like episode 1 or 2 for me, like earlier on in the series. But my biggest takeaway, the stuff that I really enjoyed about this episode, was Elizabeth Olsen's performance as Wanda, and just really starting to see her just lose it. She needs to have a break from everything. Things are glitching from previous decades, and she can't control it. Is she the one controlling it? Is there someone else? Maybe we can discuss that later on in our discussion. But so Olsen's performance, I mean, she's been great in every single episode, but those moments where she really starts to show her vulnerability and that she can't keep a lid on this thing, those were probably my favorite bits. And I felt like the speaking to camera done in the style of the 2010 sitcom really helped get that out.
Yeah, and I think that was a really big thing for me, that mockumentary is my favourite sitcom genre by far. After Friends, my favourite sitcom of all time is Parks and Rec. I've watched most of Modern Family. I think when I caught up to the live stuff, I think I mentioned earlier that when I reached where it was going weekly, I just dropped off because I don't like watching sitcoms weekly. So many more come to mind. And The Office, actually, I'll speak about that in a minute. But for the moment we're in, we've had the big end of Act 2, which is last week of the expansion. And I was kind of shocked that we didn't get this lingering what happened last week type thing. It was very much a cutting straight back to the present, no cliffhanger. We're not carrying on a minute later. We're carrying on the next day. And the choice of mockumentary works so well for this because we're at a point where we need to learn more about character motive, stuff that's going on, issues that have happened. She's had her moment last week. We don't find out right away, but she's kind of not scared of Vision, but she's scared of that confrontation with him getting into I guess, what's really going on. She's trying to avoid that conversation with him. So having the mockumentary style, I thought works really well. And I think when you look at that decade, not necessarily the 10s, but mockumentaries are right up there in the sitcom genre. And this is the series that's having the throwbacks to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s onwards. You need to have a mockumentary episode, and I think they placed it at the best time. So they could have done mockumentaries in the noughties. The mockumentaries have been around for a long time, but I think the 10s was the right time for them to do it. And I absolutely love that. As someone, again, loves that genre. That made me right feel at home. However, one thing that threw me, really minor thing, I know they meant for the Modern Family vibe. However, they basically had the Office opening to the point where even the music sounded like The Office. Absolutely no issues with it because I love The Office. I love both versions of The Office, actually. But that really threw me. And I think that's because I'm used to that Modern Family. Like, this is the Modern Family episode, but here's the intro to The Office. I don't know if WandaVision's done that before. I'm not bothered because I liked it, but it was a really interesting setting. And I think what we assume could be the final sitcom episode, as you mentioned, going back to that episode 1 stuff, I think for the opening of the final act, I didn't mind it as much because where it's left us another Friday, it's left us somewhere for next week. I think we've kind of removing all the sitcom stuff because it's like a neat little bow on the sitcoms, and now we're getting into the grips of the real story.
Yeah, with the mockumentary style, I think that worked for Wanda's character because fundamentally she's still the one that's trying desperately to cling to this reality that she's created for herself and that she's in. The stuff that didn't work for me, and I guess we'll talk about, because this has like a bunch of subsections with characters. You know, you've got the stuff with Monica Rambeau going on. You've got like Darcy and Vision kind of bombing off and doing their own thing. And then you've got the stuff with Wanda. The Darcy and Vision stuff didn't work for me this episode. It felt like the really corny comedy stuff. And it felt like we were building dramatically, especially with Vision's side of the story as well, where he kind of became self-aware in the world that not everything, his reality was being created. It wasn't real. And he had that moment of realization. Now going back into it, you think that his character would still retain that. And he does to an like an aspect of it, but you have scenes where he's sat in like a director's chair and he's given an interview to someone off camera. And I get that they were trying to emulate that 2010s sitcom vibe with it, with the mockumentary, but you have to sort of question the medium of that, especially with Vision's character, why he'd be doing that. Why would he be acting like that? Why would he take the time to sit down and speak to someone off camera like a TV show when he knows that he's not in a TV show? So that bit kind of didn't work for me. And, you know, I really enjoyed seeing Darcy back in this series. I never thought I would say that because Darcy was never a character that I liked in the Thor films. But this was more of Thor Kat Dennings for me in this episode, and I don't know why. It was just the comedy I didn't find funny. There's a bit where they're trying to get back to the town, and it's like the Truman Show. This was actually probably the closest example to the Truman Show was in this episode, where pedestrians and everything, it always seems to be against them. They can't get into the place where they're trying to. There's roadworks, there's school kids crossing the road, there's absolutely everything preventing them there. And then Vision just decides to fly out of the car and go to the town, and I'm thinking, well, why couldn't he have just done that in the first place? He hasn't forgotten that he has the power of flight. He could have just literally walked back into the Hex. He's in the carnival and fly directly to where he needs to get to. So that felt like padding to me, and it was trying to get like a comic relief aspect to it. And I'm not going to say that the comedy's dropped out of this series the last few episodes, but it definitely seemed to be subsiding, and the more dramatic, conclusive ending was sort of building up. This one felt like a step back to that more kooky, quirky comedy, and I didn't think it worked at this late stage in the series with this episode.
Yeah, that's right. I'm fair. We've got a couple of people in the comments, so we'll start bringing them up in a moment, especially with the Vision Darcy stuff. I've never watched Two Broke Girls, and I don't know if that's before the Thor films, but that is the show where Kat Dennings sort of became more of a sitcom household name. That she was big because of Thor anyway, but I think Two Broke Girls is massive. I'm not seeing it, but you could tell when they went into that sitcom style, she was doing really well. And I think Paul Bettany's been great throughout, but Vision to camera was something I thought felt a bit strange because he is aware. Now, if you'd had Kat Dennings to camera, that would have worked, I think, more for me, but I'm kind of in the opposite, that I loved all the little things like, oh, we can't get back. It's that petty. It's so petty, but it's a really typical sitcom trope that, oh, they just can't get anywhere and everything bad's happening on the same day. And I love the shots of Vision sat in the chair because it just aesthetically looked funny. But it's exactly what you said. When he just gets up and flies up, eventually it's like, okay, you took your time. We knew we were going to get there. And I just don't think he had a lot to do. I think they were trying to pad out. I know it's quite not meta, but they're trying to pad him out of the story because they need him somewhere else whilst Wanda's having the story with Agnes / the kids. And I'm not saying it's meta, that it's intentional, but it felt sort of awkward that, we really can't Vision in this episode, but we've set X, Y, and Z up and we need them to deliver. What I will say, the other thing I really liked was when they were all brought into the universe, the fact he recognized Kat Dennings based off her being chained up, I thought was really cool. I liked that bit. I liked the fact that he wiped her mind straight away, that he didn't want to hang around, but it was more the fact that he recognized her from her being the one trying to save him. So I like they had a little connection from the get-go. However, it wasn't the best subplot from that main story, and it wasn't a massively long episode. It was, 20, bang on 30 minutes without credits.
Yeah.
And we had to stay for the credits, which we'll mention later on, which I absolutely fluked. But let's start bringing some stuff up because we've got Nathan, Darcy, and Vision parts weren't brilliant given the last episode. Exactly. James, sitcom stuff was a bit forced. We're in the final third, and we should feel like we're past that now. If not now, next week, I think we'll get us that at the end because I think we both think that's going to stick now in not modern day, not in sitcom world anymore. Life of Ryan, Paul Bettany's weakest episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, Royal, no idea what that means. But someone's going to translate that for me, please. However,
sorry.
I was just going to say it seems pretty not ominous, but I think everyone's on the same wavelength with this that side plot didn't work as well, especially at the same time. You've got another subplot happening where you want to investigate it further, which is the Wanda stuff, the Monika stuff as well. All of that tied in that side away from it, whereas that other bit was a little bit forced.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point there that if Darcy had been the one sort of speaking to camera, and I think if you're going to give Darcy some kind of a story arc within the show, she was watching the show week to week. She watched every single episode. She was actually weirdly kind of getting invested in it in a way. And you could say that she always wanted to be part of the show. So you could have those moments where she sat in the chair talking and she now officially kind of is part of the show. But then she could get up and go, actually, what am I doing here? I need to, carry on and take down the Hex, essentially. So that would have been a nice sort of like little mini character arc almost for her in terms of the TV stuff. But yeah, you mentioned it was Paul Bettany's weakest episode. I think for me, we'll move on to something else in a minute because I don't want to sort of like belabor the point with this, but I think because the end of the last episode was so dramatic, going back to like a quirky, the quirky humor that was like in the 60s and 70s sitcom style show, that was more of a whiplash. We'd been naturally building away from that. And then as the character of Vision, we were sort of in his position where we know that the situation isn't right. And we were kind of learning as he was. Obviously, we probably know a bit more than him because we've seen the Avengers films, but I thought we were finally at that point. And I don't want to jump all the way to the end, but there's another moment literally at the very end of the episode with Agnes's character where she reveals herself fully. And then there's like a song and dance number almost. And that to me felt like that Marvel humor where it's just, I wish we could just take that out and just let this play out as a dramatic moment, as a dramatic reveal. There are elements that I do like about the song, and we'll talk about that when we get to the very end of the episode, but it's bits like that were more prominent in this episode that kind of took me out of the drama of the moment, I guess. It didn't quite have the impact of the previous episodes.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that. We've already got some comments about the song. We'll get to them later on. Zach in the comments as well. Hello there, great photo. Should we? Oh, where do you want to go first? Shall we talk Monika, or shall we talk Agnes and Wanda?
Let's talk Monika first.
Yeah. What caught me off guard is that we don't get the. We're going to call him generic sword. Was it Swordman? Everyone called him in the comments last week. The Swordman. I don't think he's in this episode. The really sort of two-dimensional
military guy, like the two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Military guy. Okay.
Yeah, I saw a really funny Mephisto meme. First mention. I'll bring that up later on if I can. But we didn't get him. Instead, there's an. I don't know if I missed something. Someone please comment wrong, but there was another camp they were setting up, which is Monica's camp with Monica's friends. And I was like, okay, is there like going to be different camps and different hex corners now? Because I wasn't really sure what was going on. But what I loved was that little mini vehicle they did. We're going to talk to the aerospace engineering a bit because everyone on Twitter has been losing their mind all week about who it could be, who you'll think it could be, will be, should be, hopefully be, all that kind of stuff. But the fact they were going to break into the hex was obviously to get Darcy back and figure out what's going on. But that little vehicle, I know it was meant to be a whole, this is the kind of vehicle we have on the moon thing, very topical with what's happened on Mars this week. But the whole spacesuit build-up, I absolutely loved. I don't know why. It felt so un-Marvel. That's why it works so well, because it kind of made me think like, goes, ooh, when it comes to the Fantastic Four in the next few years, are we going to get spacesuits? And don't get me wrong, I love my Guardian stuff, but are we going to get that space exploration that we haven't yet had? Because we've had so many wonderful stuff for the cosmic universe, but we haven't had that direct Earth to space. It's always been, we've got the great scene, the great moment Endgame where, has anyone not been to space? It's just like Captain America and Scarlet, the hands like awkwardly putting their hands up. Little things like that I love. So I like that side of it. And then a very weird action scene trying to like drill into the hex, and then suddenly we're getting pulled in. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit confused. I've not rewatched the episode yet. I'm gonna save my entire rewatch for the week before the final episode airs. So I'm looking forward to binging that in the right order. But that build up to the moment of her getting brought in, I thought was really cool, and it felt right. It felt a very Marvel trope, but it wasn't done to an abnormally large scale. It felt right for what the show was trying to be.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about it as well. If anyone in the comments knows what I'm talking about, if anyone's played the Mass Effect games, it reminded me of the rover that you explore planets with. It's like the little buggy thing that you drive around in. Immediately made me think of that. But yeah, as soon as you've got Monica in the spacesuit, in the astronaut costume, I immediately thought, oh, Fantastic Four. It's so close yet so far. It's at the end of Phase 4. Like, are we going to get this? Now, whether they're going to be tied in with S.W.O.R.D., I don't think they are in the comic books. I think they're just kind of their own faction, their own team, just a science team. But literally just visually that with the rover, with the astronaut suits on, I thought that could potentially be cool in X amount of years' time whenever we get the Fantastic Four film coming out. But yeah, I was confused about it because I thought the whole point of it was to show that even this rover, this like 2-ton truck that she's got right here, can't penetrate the hex. But then she kind of gets out of it, and then she just tries really hard, and she just walks through it herself. Now, I don't know if that's because sort of like her DNA's been changed from constantly going in, out, that she's now almost part of the crew, part of the ship. Like, she's part of the hex now in a weird way, so she's able to access it because she's been there before, but it's all of the foreign objects can't get into the hex. I don't know if they were trying to get at that. Maybe I missed something as well on that, but I did think it was kind of a strange little aside. But the shot where she actually gets into the hex and she's got like these glowing blue eyes, I thought that was really cool. I thought, now we're going to get here with Captain Marvel 2, the one person in the crowd cheering for Captain Marvel 2 being a thing. But now I have a character who I know from this who is kind of cool. Now, maybe when I get to that, I won't care about Brie Larson as Captain Marvel at all, but maybe I'll care about Monica Rambeau. And, with the powers, we do have a standoff where she goes to try and confront Wanda, and things start to, heat up, and Wanda's doing like the whole thing, getting ready to blast her, but then she does like the superhero landing and there's the blue glow. That was really cool. So I enjoyed seeing that, and we'll talk about the post-credit scene at the end because there's like a little ending cliffhanger with Monica's character going into next episode. But I mean, it's an effective way through the TV show to explain how she's got superpowers, I guess. And I liked how she had that heart-to-heart with Wanda as well. She wasn't going in sort of all guns blazing with these new powers that she's got. She did seem to handle having superpowers very well, though. I think that's worth mentioning. She didn't kind of have that moment of realization like, oh my God, like I'm glowing blue, what's happening? She just sort of went with it and was fine. But I liked how she mentioned about she knows what it's like to lose someone as well. So she tried to talk Wanda down with that. And Wanda's line as well, which I thought was really good. And we always keep talking about how this show, for me, has sort of cemented that maybe Scarlet Witch is the most powerful member of the whole Avengers team. When she says, like, you're not the villain, Wanda, and she says something like, maybe I am, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I enjoyed that part of it. I like the standoff between the two of them.
Yeah, the standoff was great. It was that really tense build-up, and before that you get Agnes peering out the window, and I was like, aha! that if she wasn't important, that is an irrelevant shot, and we don't have time for relevant shots. Therefore, Agnes, we're going to get to you soon. The Monica stuff was great. Those blue eyes looked amazing. I don't know what it was, but it didn't look overly CGI. It felt, I don't know if she had blue contacts, but they didn't, go for the whole, I've got wisp. You know how Scarlet Witch has the wispy hands, the little red circle thing, and it'd have been really awkward if Monica had all that, but it felt like, oh, she's getting angry. Her eyes are getting bluer in the whole blue versus red stuff, which is, an obvious a color theme. The energy thing was weird. I absolutely loved that scene of her walking through the hex with all the different Monicas we got in the sitcom stuff all merging into one and her breaking through. Now, James has mentioned in the comments they've gone straight to Spectrum. I don't know much about the Spectrum character, but that was what I was reading about earlier on, is that's her main alias superhero name when she gets it. It's something about extra dimensional power, which I love that phrase, because now I guess we can just call it like hex energy or multiverse energy. We're going to find out in the next couple of months, aren't we, depending on how much multiverse they want to explain before Doctor Strange. But the build up to their face off was great. I love the fact that everyone went to in the streets, everything stopped. And it was like, really, okay, things are about to go down. But she didn't have the power again to stop Agnes. She could only stop the other people around her, which is another big giveaway to what was going to be announced. So I think all of their supports worked well with one another. And also, you kind of mentioned the Captain Marvel stuff as well, that we've had, obviously it's the first Marvel Studios TV shows. We've had a couple of other shows like Agency Show and Agent Carter, but we've had a natural origin that we haven't really... I hate using the word natural origin, but you know how you get like an origin film, and within those films, you'll have a story take place, but it's so forced. Like Leader in The Hulk, blood drips on his head starts bobbing. Don't see him again, but really obvious setup there. Monica's been very natural. When you think that, she was just a kid in Captain Marvel 1, we didn't know at the time they were going to plan maybe her being a superhero, or there'd be a Miss Marvel film and Captain Marvel 2. Even back in December, Disney's like, oh, this character's going to come back in Ms. Marvel TV series. And then she'll be in Captain Marvel 2. And it's kind of like, okay, like she's going to stick around for a bit longer. But watching this show, now we've seen her get an origin. We say origin, we don't even know what her powers fully are yet. But we've had this really natural, great character development of her. Where I think she's gone from someone that was like an outsider in the first episode, which we knew about, to someone I want to see more of. I think she's one of the best things in this series. We keep talking about Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Catherine Hahn as well. We all mentioned all of those people, but it's just been great to get a fourth name in there, and I feel really bad because I've absolutely forgotten her name, which is embarrassing.
I would like to see a little bit more personality from her. I think at the moment she is kind of not falling into that category of being bland, but everything's sort of exposition, everything's sort of business, the mission, and you occasionally get the bits with her mom, but it doesn't really go past that. I don't feel like I know her as a person all that much. I think because she was a little girl in Captain Marvel, and now we're kind of thrown into her, it's just like, oh yeah, it's the same person, but we haven't seen the person who she's become in all those years. So hopefully we get more of her. I get that she's not the focus in this series. You've got to keep it on Wanda and Vision and everything that's going on there. So maybe with all of these other projects and other films and other TV shows that she's in, we'll get her fleshed out a lot more, especially with TV, because you just have more time to spend with someone, Nathan's asked us a question here as well. He says that after Monica does her superhero Landy thing, do you think Wanda looked sort of surprised or threatened, maybe? I want to probably say an element of both, because Wanda at this point clearly doesn't know that the Hex has this power to essentially create superheroes. I was speaking to you as well, saying that I'm confused now. Does Monica only have these powers because she's been in and out of this thing like a whole bunch of times? Because I was saying to you, like, does this technically mean now that Darcy has superpowers if the Hex can change your body composition and everything like that? Is everyone in the town now a superhero? We talked about that as well with the mutant theory as well. Now, I don't want to see Darcy become a mutant. I don't want that to happen at all. So I don't know if there is an explanation as to why Monica has been singled out for that, or if it literally is just because of the more exposure that you have to this thing and the more time that you spend in there, the more powers you get. I'm not sure. I'm guessing that's probably what it is. But I think she was probably a bit of both, because last time Monica was there and they had an altercation, Monica was a pushover and she was just literally pushed straight out of the Hex. Now she can actually probably not match Wanda, but she's a bit tougher now and she's got her powers, and I'm sure she'll be harnessing those over the course of the finale and the other projects that we see her in as well.
Yeah, and it's what you mentioned as well, that the standoff scene that was great with them is when they were talking, and she was talking about, I've been through something similar. I've lost the person that's closest to me. I loved all that stuff. It worked so well because we do not keep forgetting Vision's dead. We know he's dead. They even reminded us in this episode that he knew he was dead twice. And it is that big thing. It's like, okay, not that it was a passing line in that episode when we get her coming back from the blip, but when you think about her character progression, everything was her and her mom, and she got blipped, and her mom passed away in that 5 years. And that opening 3 minutes was episode 4, was some of the best character development we've probably had in the MCU for someone that had a 3-minute quick flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And that playing its part today in the discussions, like, she's got a point. Just because something bad's happened, you doesn't mean you got to, leave that reality, which I think is its own talking point, because reality-wise, then jumping too hard, we also have the traditional TV advert. I don't know if we want to mention that now, or if we're...
Yeah, no, I was going to move us on to the TV advert. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely worth mentioning.
The most on-the-nose one so far, we've kind of both spoke that we know this trajectory was... Is it playing something bigger? But we realised this is the history of Wanda Maximoff. Each TV advert was something different in her lifetime, whether getting the powers or leaving Hydra or being a part of Hydra, the explosion in Lagos. Last week was that sort of death thing. This week, the kind of depression advert, taking the tablets, seeking help, but mentioning going to other realities. And it wasn't, I don't think it was meant to be a neat nod. I think it was meant to be as obvious as it needs to be. But also because it's that 2010s TV advert, from when you watch TV, especially for tablets and sort of advert stories, I guess you could say, like that, it did feel right to the decade. I think maybe that's why it was even easier than it could have been to spot what the subject matter is, because we see adverts like that every day on TV still. Whereas, going back to the ones in the past, when me and you both spoke about the one from last week, when you've got the kid on the island, it was a massive reminder to watching those Saturday morning cartoons, the kids adverts, all that really cool stuff. So there was a place for it. But again, as we're leaving the sitcom stories, going into that, I think we're in the present tense, and I think that's the last advert we're going to get. And I think that's kind of completed the mini Wanda adverts.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't really talk much about the advert because it pretty much gives you all the information that you need. There's no sort of subtle reference or a thing that you can, open for different perspectives. It is pretty much just laid out exactly what it is, that the whole crux of the show, which we've pretty much guessed and known since episode 1. So it felt kind of weird that this being the last one. Maybe it is that progression where she goes through everything in her life and then everything starts to make sense, and she's started to realize now the error of what she's done or what she's created. We don't even know if she has created this thing. We assume she has, but there's another player on the board now, which we'll talk about at the end as well. But yeah, I did like on the box the design of the hex, sort of like the outside of it on the box of the tablets. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, there's not really much to take away from the advert. It is just kind of self-explanatory, really, what it's talking about. Let's see what we've got here. Should we just get on to the big reveal now? Even if it is a big reveal, I don't know, because you predicted from the beginning, I'm sure a lot of people have, that Catherine Hahn, I've actually found the name of the actress now. Catherine Hahn's character from the first episode, there was more to her. I think, doing these week to week and people commenting, I think I saw this name crop up a bunch of times. This is actually Agatha Harkness, and I saw that name around. That was on me. I didn't Google it. So as soon as the episode finished today, I was just sort of nodding at the screen as the credits were going up, reached for my phone, went onto Google and typed in Agatha Harkness to see who the hell she is and what she does in the comic books. So brief bit of history. I'm not going to dive everything into the comic books because I don't know everything there is to know about her in the comic books, but apparently she's the mother of a guy called Nicholas Scratch, who at first I thought was the Black Cat in the image on Wikipedia. I thought that's a name that's kind of on the nose. It's not. He's actually a villain of the Fantastic Four. So that could be interesting. That's another link there they could possibly go into. Because honestly, outside of Galactus and Victor Von Doom, I don't know any other villains from the Fantastic Four, so maybe that could be one. And let me just see here. It says that she was the one who actually instructed Wanda in the ways of magic and real magic, and then Agatha was eventually killed by Wanda after she went insane. I'm assuming that means Agatha goes insane. She also has a Black Cat sidekick character. Now, we haven't seen the Black Cat sidekick character, so I'm assuming they've got rid of that, but I was looking at the ages of the actors, and Catherine Hahn is 15 years older than Elizabeth Olsen. So I don't know if they're going to go into any kind of reveal that Agatha has taught Wanda, if they are going to go that direction from the comic books, because as we kind of understand from the MCU so far, you've got Hydra, who looks like they've pretty much experimented on and done all kinds of stuff on Wanda and her brother to give them those superpowers to begin with. So I don't know if we are going to go into that thing where, because the age-wise, you know, she could come in, she could be like a teenage, it's like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, coming in and sort of like teaching her things. But I think she is going to build to be the big bad of this series. But we've kind of been speculating as well, and I think a lot of people, that there might be an even bigger villain behind the scenes. And I know that you've been doing some digging on this episode, and you found a bunch of articles with a lot of things in the background that might lead to someone bigger.
Yeah, it's getting on Star Wars level. I was in like a one frame small dot. The small dot means X, Y, Z. The Agnes stuff I loved. I'm going to mention what you said to me. Any British people, you would have seen the show Jungle Run. Chris, you mentioned the moment they go into that basement, it's that kind of, oh, what are all these vines, and there's something happening here, and there's going to be this big thing. But instead, it was like a giant room. It reminded me of, I always use this analogy, in Wreck-It Ralph, the universe that's built in the plug socket. One of my favorite ever creations. Don't know why. Whenever I think of buildings with those doors now, all I ever think about is Wreck-It Ralph, which is really strange. But I love some of the moments in this. The build up to this as well, actually, is when they've got the confrontation and Agnes steps out and sort of grabs her arm. It's like, something's happening. She's taking her away. There's going to be a revelation. The twins are already there. Loved the really eerie room earlier in the episode when the twins are like, you're very quiet on the inside. And it's that really like edgy, awkward humor. And I think with Catherine, because I've seen her in like Parks and Rec and some other stuff, because we've seen her do that mockumentary style before, some of those scenes she was great when she had the cameras, you know, it's the very sitcom, you know, I bit a kid once, I think. We're probably going to get an origin for that eventually now. We're going to find out so much more.
That made me laugh. That aside, made me laugh.
And that's the thing, and she's got the amazing laugh, but the whole build-up to going on says we knew something was going to be wrong, and I think at that point, because we've had the sitcom episodes, we know, okay, we need that sort of traditional, what's going to be the big story beat to take us to next week? What's going to be the cliffhanger or the revelation? What are we going to find out? And I think we knew it was coming. We get like the book, which someone will probably be able to comment and tell us what it is. I read it online, but I've forgotten the name already, so I'm not going to take credit for that. That's all tied in. And then obviously we have the reveal that she's Agatha Harkness. She's got a pet rabbit and not a pet cat. But what I loved with this scene is that they did the reveal, not in episode 8 or in episode 9. They dropped it in episode 7, which means that we can have 2 more episodes thinking, is Mephisto going to come into it? We'll say his name again. We'll whisper it at this point in time. But we kind of knew. I think we needed an explanation on it, because if she'd have come out, been not creepy, but she'd have been really friendly again, took her away for a story point, and we don't get a revelation, I think that would have been okay. What was the purpose of bringing her in when everyone else is frozen? I think we had that now, that we know that she's going to be a villain. To the capacity of the villain, we don't know yet, because Mephisto, I'm just going to say what Mina spoke about earlier. You've got your episode 9 analogy, where you can imagine like Wanda walking in the basement. It's like Palpatine on Exegol. And I was there like, oh, I didn't think of that. I was thinking about Snoke the entire time, because the levels WandaVision has reached is Mephisto this, Mephisto that, Mephisto this, Mephisto that. Everyone's been talking about Mephisto. And the only thing to me that comes close to this is the who is Snoke? Your Snoke theory sucks. All of that stuff. And I saw an amazing tweet, which is why I'm actually on my phone. I'm trying to grab it. Here we go. I'm going to play it to the screen. It's the Leonardo DiCaprio, and every character that turned up, it's Mephisto. And it's Mephisto, it's Mephisto, it's Mephisto, it's Mephisto. The Mephisto theories are borderline insanity, but they are so amazing that we've reached the point where if Mephisto isn't in this series, doesn't matter how great the last few episodes are going to be, there's going to be this horrible online explosion for no reason.
Well, so give the people what they want then. That's a simple fix. Put Mephisto in the end and have a satisfying ending, which is like a crowd pleaser.
And I think he is going to be in it, because now you've led me into the deep online theories. Okay, in the shot of her entering the building, there is a bunny that gets a close-up and then a fly. Apparently, Mephisto's first ever form in the Marvel Comics was appearing as a fly. So, you know, you don't just give a close-up for no reason to anything. that would have been intentional. So there's people's one. That's fair. I don't mind that. Then when people are telling me that they zoomed into the wall and on the wall you could make out a kind of mannequin, and the kind of mannequin is representative of Mephisto, it's like, okay, here we go, back to sort of A-level film studies. What does this X, Y, and Z mean? And then they're taking it deep. Now they're going into the Loki trailer and saying, you can see in the Loki trailer there's a stained glass wall on a church, and there's a devil figure. Therefore, Mephisto is going to stick around for the next few shows, films, whatever we want to know. I'm not too sure, but I love the conversation. I do think Mephisto is going to be in this. I don't know if Agatha is working for him or with him. She has story arcs tied into Wanda. As you mentioned, Wanda turns insane, eventually kills her. I see that happening. No one's going to get out of this series. We know that Vision's going to probably die. And I can imagine that some characters are going to get, their dues. So for some, we will get to the song in a bit, but when Agatha's been controlling everything all along, it's that kind of, I politely put to Catherine Hahn, I love her. I can't see her being a leading villain, being that, I hate using the word endgame because it's become the norm, but I don't mean it inside Marvel. But who's going to be the season finale villain? I don't think it's her. I think she's got the perfect reveal at the perfect moment to take us to the next story. I think my theory stands. I'm going to let you speak about my Quicksilver theory, but I've gone on for too long, so you speak yours and then I'll drop my next theory.
Yeah, my stipulation is if Mephisto is going to be in there, and this is kind of, I've always had this pet peeve with superhero things where they make a villain more realistic. Let's say Mephisto is in this, right? And they go behind one of those doors. You mentioned like the set as well. And there's like all these doorways with like a hellish glow coming from behind them. It's like the glow of like the Balrog in Moria or something, or like Ghostbusters, like when they open the fridge, there's just going to be like a hellscape as soon as you open that door. What will absolutely kill me is if they get a fantastic actor in for Mephisto, but he's just a dude in like a red costume. And he doesn't look like the character. When they make a villain more realistic, the example that I always go to is Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. You've got Galactus and they make him a cloud because it's more in keeping visually with everything. And I've even had that with some people with like the costumes and everything in the show. Like I remember seeing, not in the show, sorry, in the MCU, you had Hawkeye being first introduced in Thor, and he's just like in a black bog standard uniform. And it's like, if you look at the comics, now I'm not saying you have to make him exactly like that. I kind of want to see the visual depiction. And another sort of like fiery demonic like character is Dormammu, who was in Doctor Strange. When he was name dropped in that film for the first time, I lost my mind. The guy looks like Ghost Rider. He's fiery, he's hellish, he looks awesome. And then he's just sort of like a purple face in the sky. I don't want that to happen with Mephisto. If you're going to do Mephisto, do comic book Mephisto. Google image the guy. It's incredible. I mentioned to you beforehand, it's like something from like a heavy metal album cover or something like that. So I hope we get him. If we do get him, though, because we're only 2 episodes away now, I think the next episode is going to be all about Agatha, and we might have like a battle or something there. Depending on which direction they take her. Clearly, she's going to be a villain for this. I know that she's almost like a mentor figure in the comic books, but it seems like they're going with just like an all-out villain. And then if she teases Mephisto at the end of that episode, and then we get like 10 minutes with the guy at the end of the last episode, that will kind of kill me a little bit more, because he is such a big villain. You want to go out on a bang. Now, there's rumors out there that they've used more CGI in the finale of this show than they have in Endgame, or in terms of like a budget or something like that. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't think visually for a TV show it looks great, but it's not on the same level as like a huge big budget blockbuster action film. We'll have to see, we'll have to wait and see with that. But I think all the theories in there, I think everything in the background, they've clearly been done for a purpose. They wouldn't just be thrown in for the sake of it. So I really hope we get him. But also, on the other hand, I kind of want them to sort of like double down on Agatha and kind of develop her more as well, because I don't want her to just be taken out really quickly. It feels like we've got 2 big villains that could potentially be great villains, but it seems like Agatha's going to be more of that comedic villain based on the song that we got at the end of this episode, and not this dramatic I'm going to say Endgame, Christ, like a Thanos kind of villain, the one that you actually fear and, is going to serve as that primary antagonist role.
I think they're all good points. I think Mephisto is the fascinating one, because we know we're getting Wanda in Doctor Strange next year. She's either going to get stuck in the multiverse or something's going to happen to her in the multiverse. I think we're going to get Mephisto. I think it's going to be a very small role, and I think he will either be the main villain in Doctor. Well, he can't be the main villain in Doctor Strange 2 because we've got not Baron Zemo. Is it the other Baron played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who I've forgotten the name of, the guy that turns evil at the end that for some reason re-disables the guy. Yeah, him. I think Mephisto could, in theory, be a Phase 4 villain. We might get someone that's gonna stick around for a bit, appear in a couple of projects, because the great thing with Thanos is that yes, we had Infinity War and Endgame, but we had a subtle build-up. We had a credit scene in the Avengers. We had the Age of Ultron. The Iron Man having that vision of all those people dying. It was plaguing his mind for years. We had the Guardians of the Galaxy cameo. I guess I'm not going to count the awful Age of Ultron credit scene where he gets the glove out, but we've had all these moments with him to build him up to when he comes in. I think we can have something similar. We know they're not doing an Avengers film, or one they've not yet announced. There could be a team-up film, or there could be a big show to merge some small storylines together. I think we're going to get Mephisto be a threat for a couple of films, so I don't mind if he's got a small role. However he's going to be in it, is what you said, that Marvel's reached a point where if they bring in the X-Men, they could stick the ridiculous yellow costumes on them, because it's reached that point in not just fandom audience, but they can try the things that can't be done. They did a talking tree, for God's sake. If you can make that work, you can make any character appearance work. I get you couldn't have 10 years ago. You needed some of that grounded stuff, but now they can do whatever they want. And I really hope they can build on that, because this is going to be important. This is the kickstart of Phase 4, as they do keep telling us. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they try and do from here onwards. Now, Agatha comes into this really interesting, because if she's working as the understudy to him, or he's controlling her, or something like that, I don't mind her being a sideline villain, in the same way that Loki was a sideline villain in the Avengers, right? Loki might have been the villain on screen, but he was always working for Thanos. He wasn't ever gonna really control the Earth and all that stuff. He was a B-tier villain, partly put in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's what Agatha's going to be. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. I'm excited, but I want to see a bit more about her. I don't need a full origin story. We've got actually a really cool comment from Nathan. I think the next episode could be a flashback, how we got from Endgame to Westview. I would love something like that. I think, I'm not saying we're owed it, but I think in the next two episodes now, in the next 2 episodes, they need to finish off that, her taking Vision from the facility. We need to find out more about that. And we also need to get some more origins of the Westview, whether it's via exposition and showing clips. All I could think of today is the Vince McMahon. It was me all along, Austin. The only thing she needed was a hood and Vince McMahon's face to have done that even better. But oh god, it's fun, isn't it? Because we kind of knew this was coming, and it's a not so obvious reveal, but it's still a reveal that's left us with another 10 questions to take us to next week. And I want to bring up a couple more comments from some people.
Yeah, let's go to the... Yeah.
Was Agatha's brooch a physical representation of when she was doing magic or doing something wrong? I don't know. I just assumed it was a brooch that she wears that was a reference to her magical stuff. So I couldn't give an answer to that, Nathan. Carl?
I was going to say Carl's one.
What's the bet? And the rabbit is the same name as her husband, Ralph. That would be pretty good. Another one we forgot to mention, Wanda telling the kids Quicksilver's not their uncle. That was a big moment. We get in the music video, the not to get on a high horse. She was controlling him the entire time. Now, has she plucked him out of the multiverse from X-Men and chucked him in the current timeline so that he can play brother and get his memories? We'll find out next week, but that theory is half there. We're half there.
I was going to say, and Agatha knows a lot as well, because obviously she was feeding Vision the information. She clearly knows everything that's happened, and you could go, well, she was a civilian, she would know. But the fact that she knows of Quicksilver from the recent X-Men films in another universe, to know of him, and that he's a different version of the person who was her brother, so I'm going to conjure him for her. That raises a lot of questions as well. So definitely, I think she's the key to the multiverse. I'm torn on the Mephisto thing now. Part of me thinks they're going to do... do you remember the end of the first episode? I'm taking everyone back now to Sherlock, BBC. Series 1, if you've seen that.
When you tease Moriarty.
Moriarty, another guy with like a big bad villain with an M as a name. I think they might do something like that, maybe. Or maybe like the Joker at the end of Batman Begins, where it's like taste for the theatrical like you, leaves a calling card, and then it's going to be, ooh, and then everyone's going to be talking about the ending, this big finale. The thing is, as well, we've got 2 episodes and we've still got a lot of questions. I feel like we say that every week. Every single week it answers a few and it raises a whole bunch more. Do you think that the runtime for the next 2 episodes will be longer? Because I don't see them condensing and answering every single question in the span of like 2 25-minute to 30-minute episodes.
I think if they're leaving the sitcom stuff behind, no more adverts in the middle, I think you could easily do 45 minutes for each episode, not including the 7-minute credits, which I'm actually going to say this now. I'm sick of this. Not to disrespect the people that do dubs. I've never seen a film or property in my life where the end credits have credited every other person that's worked on a dub. Maybe for Japanese anime, where I guess English dubs might have that. But I don't know if I'm the first person that's ever thought of that. It's just very strange that even the music stops and wants to play them. And then just take a couple of minutes off. You don't need that many credits. Just do different credits for every region, because it's just ridiculous that every time I see the length, I was like, okay, I'm going to minus 7 minutes now. You don't do that for major films. You don't do that at all for anything else, because you get 7-minute credits on 2-hour films, not 25-minute episodes of TV. So that's my mini rant aside. I don't want to be disrespectful towards them, but
no, it's extensive. It's just, and you told me actually there was a credit scene. We'll talk about that in a second.
That's my issue. Yeah,
there's not much to talk about, and the fact that we haven't had a credit scene in any of other episodes, you'd imagine there being one at the very final finale episode. It felt really random. It felt like this scene could have literally just been in the episode. I don't quite get why it had to be a credit scene, but it's just Monica's going there to the basement, I guess, where Wanda is, and then Pietro shows up, Quicksilver, to stop her, and I'm guessing he's going to be like the muscle. He's going to be like the henchman, I guess, to Agatha, and there's that probably be where the CGI comes in, if he's like zipping around here, there, and everywhere fighting Wanda. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it'll be good. I think they're going to take us into the finale strong. And the last comment I'll bring up, just because James brought it up, big question for Mephisto: who plays him? Chris knows who I want. So I was chatting to James earlier, and we were joking about the Palpatine. Palpatine's behind it all. Mephisto's behind it all. Ian McDiarmid for me as Mephisto, never going to happen. And in reality, if he got cast, I'd be like, that's not Mephisto. But who do you want to cast as Mephisto? Just fully CGI and a voice, a guy in makeup? What are we talking?
This is my thing. So I'm not going to lie. I don't know Mephisto's history. I don't know how he talks, his accent. What I have seen is a fantastic chin. When you've got sort of the jaws like that, you want someone that can do it justice. Now, again, let's just go this safe. Let's play motion capture, because if you're going to get characters like that right, I don't think you can do that in makeup. I think you need to get the motion capture costume out, and you need to put Willem Dafoe in it. Is he too old? I don't know. Is he going to start the Green Goblin? Maybe. Will he be in Spider-Man 3? A question for another time. Because I don't know enough about him, I don't want to send a ridiculous fan casting out. What I will say is the guy that played Azazel in X-Men First Class looked amazing as a demon. Azazel, sorry, yeah. As I again, he had a chin that could do that kind of thing. So start with the chin and then work your way around it. That's all I'm going to say. It's like casting the Joker, right? Dream Joker castings back in the day, you always would say, he's got a great chin. Bowie could have done it. Willem Dafoe could have done it. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get either of those for obvious reasons. I don't know. For whoever it's going to be, it's... Oh, we have live Dave, Tim Curry from Legends.
I'm gonna. You stall for time. I'm gonna quickly add a picture of who he's talking about here, because
I know exactly who he's talking about, because you sent me a photo before. It might need a real time zone for that one. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I don't really know, but whoever I want it to be, I want it to be the person that's either signed a multi-picture deal, and they're gonna, you know how like Josh Brolin came into it with Guardians, and they hadn't refined Thanos until Infinity War and Endgame. If you're going to cast him, if he's got a consistent look, then please make sure that's the look he's going to have for the foreseeable films. Because the one thing I dislike of Guardians and Avengers is how different Thanos looks. He looks like a PlayStation game in both of those. Very quick one from Carl. When Quicksilver turned Monica's eyes had turned purple, as if she was under a spell. I mean, we know that purple is now Agatha's magical color. It's very strange because we've got blue for Monica, we've got red for Scarlet Witch, and we've got purple for Agatha. So at least if they end up having a big sort of spell fight, we're not going to have to worry about knowing whose colours what. It's a really easy way for us to work around that. And again, we don't know what's going to happen with Mephisto. So it's going to be interesting. And he might not even be in it. We might have just wasted more time casting Mephisto for someone that might not appear. However, I do think he will. And I think, again, the big thing so many people have forgotten, this leads into Doctor Strange. This wasn't made as a prequel for Doctor Strange, but the film is called The Multiverse of Madness. Keyword there, multiverse and madness. It's filming now. Elizabeth Olsen's going to be in it. So there are going to be things set up in here that might not yet have a payoff, that might have a payoff in a year's time when that film comes out. However, we just don't know. So we'll know in 2 weeks. We'll know where things are heading, but we might not know completely what's going to happen long term. And it's going to be interesting for Phase 4 onwards that they now have this approach of, okay, we've built up to Thanos for sort of 7 years. Do we need another build-up to an A-list villain? No. But it's good to have a villain that could appear throughout multiple series, throughout multiple films, and be that character to eventually have a build-up to fighting. You don't need another Infinity War, but if you have someone that's been involved with multiple characters, it just makes it easier for them to come together to have a fight or something like that. So it's going to be really fascinating to see where it goes. I don't know if I've missed anything else. What I do want to say very quickly is I absolutely love the song for Agatha. I love that sitcom vibe to it. I think it works for the way the series has gone. Looking at it as a whole, I think getting a reveal like that did actually balance it really well. Someone mentioned it earlier in the comments, but I cannot find it right now where they speak about the song and how it's been caught in their head.
Oh, I think that was yeah, so with the song, for me, I felt that it took away from the drama of the reveal. I'd have liked a bit more of a sort of like grounded moment. The bit where she mentioned about that she killed Sparky the dog, that did get a laugh out of me. And then she kind of lets out this Glenn Close Cruella, or that's topical as well, Cruella DeVille kind of laugh. She's got the laugh down. That did get a chuckle out of me. I appreciated that. But the song itself, it's kind of, I think James mentioned earlier, it's like, let's get away from the sitcom stuff now, especially that old-timey, you know, weird, corny kind of comedy one. It's just let that be a dramatic reveal. Agatha Harkness, cut to black credits. But it goes on to, and now I can't fear her as a villain, you know? Like, I know she's had like the weird moments, the unsettling moments throughout the series, but now she's basically had like a song and dance number. It was me all along. I'm like, oh, I'm not scared of this villain. She's a quirky, funny villain. So if she is going to be the main villain and it's just going to be her, it's going to lose a lot of that impact for me because I don't fear her. I do think if they are going to build up to another villain in the MCU, I do think you need some kind of a build up. I think any good villain needs some kind of lead up, whether it's within the film itself, if it's a one and done villain, if it's a big overarching villain, then I think you need some kind of build up and plant the seed for it. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can talk about this episode. There's probably like 1,000,001 other things that I could. But once again, everyone's commented along, throwing out their theories as well. Many that I didn't even realize. There was one earlier that was posed about the TV advert, resembling each one of the Infinity Stones. I never even thought of that, so I'm going to have to go back and rewatch those. But yeah, I think I've said everything that I could on this episode. Overall, it was a solid episode. However, I did think it was a step back dramatically from the last couple of episodes that we had. Most of the stuff that let this episode down for me was the Vision and Darcy stuff. It felt really out of place. It felt like that sort of cringeworthy comedy. And I thought we were past that now with Marvel and especially with this series. So hopefully the last two episodes are a bit more dramatic and take it out on a high note. But I mean, I still enjoy it week to week, and we always say this. I never thought this show would grab me this much as it has and made me question as much as it has. I really wish I'd read more comic books as well, because you guys know all of your stuff. You guys have read the articles. Maybe you even know it before the articles, and you can pick out all these really obscure things. But I love that the makers of this show will even put those in the episodes, even if they don't lead to anything. The fact that they do have those links that people can read into, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of in the same vein that this isn't one of the strongest episodes. I'd say this is probably, there's been 7. This is probably 4th. I think you've probably got top 3s, 4, 5, and 6, not in that order. And then you've got a gap. Episode 7, gap 1, 2, 3. This sits in its own region. But then again, we've just read that. That's Act 2, Act 1. And we're one episode into Act 3. So it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes. The Agatha stuff, I'm sort of holding out till next week. I want to see what she does. I liked all that comedy stuff. It worked for the sitcom stuff, but are we going to get character development out? Are we going to get, as you said, are we going to get a fearful villain or someone that we know can go toe-to-toe with Wanda? Or is it going to be a henchman to something else? So It's going to be interesting to see where it goes again, always leading with the intrigue. But I thought, again, it was a solid episode. I think we've been spoiled so much recently with the 3 great ones. It's kind of, okay, that was how great the show was. It was doing that. And we've got an episode which is absolutely fine. But because it's not been on a level of the 3 previous ones, it's become not hard. It's not hard hitting, but...
Oh, we've lost George a second. He will be back in a second. Sorry, you cut out again there, mate.
Oh, sorry, it cut out. I was just going to say, the fact we've got Act 1, Act 2, and now we're getting Act 3, the episode's absolutely fine, but with the expectation we've had from the last 3, it does make it more difficult to comprehend something smaller. But, if we get the payoff in episode 8 and 9, then it's not just going to pay off episode 7, it's going to pay off the entire series, what they were trying to do, how they were trying to do it. So I'm very intrigued. I'm very excited to find out how and why it's become what it is. But very last thing. Very last thing.
Question. Yeah.
Nathan, where do you think the twins are? Well, not in the basement.
Oh, see, I was going to say the basement, because when she walks past those hellish doors with the glows, was there 2 doors?
There was a lot of doors, I remember.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if there were 2 doors, I thought maybe Agatha was going to do the whole Green Goblin thing, like, choose! And it's like a Sophie's Choice, which kid do you want to keep? But if there were multiple doorways, then that throws my theory out there, so who knows?
I think they're with Mephisto. Sorry to be boring. Not to do the comic stuff, but Devil Spawn was named up last week, which is what Quicksilver calls them, and I think in the comics a fragment of his soul or his heart is used to create the 2, and they're literally spawn of the devil. So maybe they're with Mephisto, or maybe they're trapped and locked up somewhere else. We don't know, but either there's a speedster and a mind person somewhere off camera, and we need to figure out where they are, how they're there, and what's going to happen next. But what I will finish on very quickly, next week we're going to have Vision, because at this point in time he's floating in the air. He was trying to get home, and that was the end of his story arc. So I wonder if Vision's going to get involved. Monica's obviously being held captive. Darcy's there, so they might all come together next week, or it could be in the finale of the week after. So I'm also intrigued to see how the Vision stuff pays off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just have a look there, by the way, if Disney Plus has technical issues like that again.
Yes, I heard about this. In America, I don't know if it happened in the UK. Apparently at 8 in the morning, well, midnight it crashed in a lot of places. No one could get onto Disney Plus at all.
Oh, okay.
I was very lucky because I stuck it on after 5 minutes and hit play, and it was working fine. But I did see a lot of people saying that the Disney servers crashed. Obviously, it's not a good thing, but it's probably also a testament to everyone is now watching this. I'd gone to the lunchtime slot of I'm watching this on my lunch break. Now it's the pre-work, let's call it, the pre-work viewing where it's on, followed by work, and no one at work watching this. Let's quickly move on. But
maybe it's kind of like a meta thing, it crashing. Like if any show's going to crash, it'll be WandaVision, where the dream is collapsing, kind of thing. But I didn't know about that until now. So I can understand that being annoying. But I think we're coming up to almost an hour now. I think we've pretty much said everything that we can on this episode. Once again, huge thank you to everyone that joined us, not just last week, but obviously tonight as well. Keeping the theories going strong, keeping the conversation going. This is what we love. This is why we love doing this thing. So please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you are here for our WandaVision stuff, you know where to find us. We're here every single Friday at 8 p.m. GMT, and we will indeed be back for the next 2 episodes as well, getting into that finale. So hopefully get some good conversations there as well. But we have a lot of other videos coming out. So this weekend, you can expect an interview that I did with the director of More Than Miyagi, the real Pat Morita story, which we covered on the channel. I was lucky enough to have an interview with him. So it'll either be tomorrow or Sunday. The point is it will be up this weekend. We've got countless reviews coming out. We have retro reviews every Tuesday at 8 p.m. My God, what else? The Cinema Savvy Awards, which we started this week on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Next week, we will be doing Best Cinematography. This week, we did Best Visual Effects. It's a nice little smaller show. It's about half hour. It seems like it's been ages since we last did a video that was about half hour long. So that's quite a fun series, and that's going to be taking us up to the Oscar season in about 10 weeks' time. So please check that out too. And George, while we've got everyone in who loves Marvel and we're talking Marvel, why don't you tee up the big retrospective you've got coming out?
Definitely. The Infinity Saga retrospective. If you've not seen it by now, this is a monstrosity of something that we're organising. We're 2 episodes into recording. I don't have a photo of the schedule. It's a beautiful photo when it comes up on screen. Shows that there's going to be 23 videos in 2 months, starting Monday, March the 1st, a retrospective on the very first film in the saga. We're doing it in release date order, phase order, the correct order, and that's Iron Man 1. I'm joined by Chris and Tate for that one. We've recorded episode 2 as well. We're doing them in advance. They're getting edited after. It's very different. It's been really fun to go back to them, and it's also incredibly jarring to pre-record them because it's coming out on Monday the 1st, and at that point in time, I remember saying to Chris at the start of the videos that was a sneak peek that, oh yeah, it's the week of the WandaVision finale. We hope episode 7 and 8 were really good. So if you do like Marvel, hang around on the channel, hit the subscribe button to get that, because they're going to be 3 videos a week. We've got a lot of new people coming on that haven't been on before. We've got regular faces, we've got new faces, and we might even have some collaborations down the line with some other channels. So be sure to follow us on all of our socials to get more details on those release dates. There may be an announcement video next Monday. There probably will be an announcement video next Monday where I'll go over things in a little bit more detail. But at the moment, it's good. It's been fun to revisit them, and it's going to be fascinating to keep this journey going and seeing where that can go at the same time as watching where this series is going to be going. So it's going to be a very fun one. Stick around for that for all the Marvel fans. It's something a bit different. And again, looking back at that saga, not as the whole MCU, just that saga, the impact of that, and maybe how some of Phase 4 is going to influence those Phase 1 stuff. So it's going to be really cool to go back to. So do check that out if you do enjoy the Marvel stuff.
Absolutely. And once again, big thank you to everyone tonight, and we'll see you on countless other videos. But if not, we'll see you next week for WandaVision. Take care.